We know what the definition of boundaries is, but like how to actually set and hold a boundary, I think that everyone doesn't, the general public doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have that skill set.
Yeah. And it's one of the most important things to learn when you want to heal and to heal fully and to live a healthy life. And did I have to learn that?
Welcome to Good Enough with the Trauma Therapist, a podcast dedicated to empowering you to take control of your life, learning valuable strategies for healing and looking at mental health through a trauma-informed lens. Get ready to feel empowered and confident in managing your symptoms. And now, here is your host, licensed clinical social worker, EMDR therapist, and certified clinical trauma professional, Jamie Vollmoeller.
Welcome to Good Enough. I am your host, Jamie Vollmoeller, and today we have Susanne Kooijman. She is a spiritual coach in self-healing and self-love. She believes that the best tool for healing and growth is yourself, and that you have everything inside of you, dealing with the severe phobias in her 20s and PTSD in her 30s. She's had her fair share of struggles, and she is thankful to several healing techniques that helped her get her life back and become happier and healthier than she'd ever been before. Welcome, Susanna. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really good, thank you.
Good. So, love to get started because you did mention in your bio that, you know, you have your own journey with trauma. So, up to you how much or how little you disclose. That's on everyone's comfort level. But yeah, like, what's your story? How'd you get to where you are, love?
Yeah. Well, it should take me quite a while to get to where I am now. It's about more than 20 years ago, actually. I'm 42 now. And when I got to my phobia, I developed a phobia when I was in my late teens, early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
That was agoraphobia. So basically, I didn't really leave the house at all because even, walking outside was enough for me to have a panic attack. And I was still living at my parents' house, and I was literally just, when I would walk out the door, I would be in a panic, and I would just be in their front garden. And literally, it took me step by step by step. Like sometimes I would reach the end of the street. I had a library at the end of our street, and I always loved books, so I'd love to go to the library. But even the end of the street was already too far for me to go, because before I entered the library, I would already have a panic attack and return home. So it was that bad. But yeah, with a lot of therapy, and like I said, literally step by step, like, okay, I would reach the end of the street. I would actually reach the library. I could actually walk a block or go to a supermarket without, staying near the entrance and looking at everyone in a panic. So it was literally step by step. And it took me about 10 years with help of friends and family, and later on a therapist, because before I was even too phobic to go to a therapist because I couldn't leave the house. So, and I was, like I said, I was at the time like in my late teens, early 20s, and the internet wasn't as available as it is now. And that makes me feel very old, but okay. But yeah, I overcame that through like trial and error. And yeah, in my mid 20s, I was like healed from that phobia, and I discovered like the travel bug, so I could finally travel again. And I traveled to Paris on my first trip with the train with my best friend. And that started that travel excitement for me. And I literally, that first year that I could travel, I traveled to Paris, to London, to Brussels.
You're like, I've been trapped in a house for like a decade. I'm going to just go see the
Oh, yeah.
world now.
Yeah, I felt like a caged bird that was finally set free, So,
Yeah.
and I moved out of my house, of my parents' house, and got into my own house. And yeah, really that growing and healing. Yeah, I expanded so much from that experience. And well, of course, then back to in my 30s, where I actually had a traumatic experience that led to PTSD, because I I was actually in the shower, just in my own home, and I suffered from carbon monoxide poisoning. And somehow I did wake up, and I
Mhm.
called the fire department, and they, well, they have these little tools and things to measure what was in the house, and they said it's carbon monoxide. And well, I'm actually lucky to still be alive. So that was very traumatic experience for me because it was in the safety of my own home, and
Yeah.
without, suddenly, you're passed out and on the floor. And like I said, I did wake up, luckily, but I had
Yeah.
no idea what was happening. And that traumatic experience led to PTSD. And it was a year of struggles because I was having these seizure like attacks because of that. And nobody knew what was going on. No therapist, no doctor. I went to the hospital like every month but nobody could tell me what actually was going on with me.
Mhm.
And I had brain scans, heart scans. I had to test on epilepsy. None of that was actually going on because it was all triggered by my PTSD. And eventually, after literally again years of struggle and trying to find out what was going on, I found a coach. She was focused on conversion disorder because I found out I have a conversion disorder where
Yeah.
your brain and your body actually they don't match. Well, because my brain was telling me something. My brain was telling me my body that I'm not safe right now.
Yeah.
So their communication is like screwed. So
No, yeah, you're
yeah,
entirely right. And I'm sure like that history of anxiety and panic disorder,
mhm,
like it just
yeah.
your brain was like, nope, the world isn't safe again, and
Oh yeah,
just
like pew, 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 pew.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was constantly like on, and whenever it didn't feel safe, it would react from, and I would not be knocked out again. So, and everyone would say, "But yeah, you're totally fine. You're healthy. Your brain is functioning well," which is awesome to hear, of course. But it also didn't give me a solution to what I should be doing.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm kind of screwed because I have no idea what's going on. Well, as I mentioned, I found out eventually through Dr. Google that I had a conversion disorder because I would just type in like, okay, what do all these blackouts mean? What's happening to my body? So as I said, I had a conversion disorder where my brain would just tell my body, okay, you're not safe right now. So there I go again. And when I found someone online who was actually like trained in that because she had a conversion disorder and overcame that. So I took a coaching with her for about a year and a half, and I can say I'm fully healed from that
Beautiful.
and happier and healthier than ever. But it's been a long journey. As I mentioned, I started being like this anxious, phobic self at the age of about 16, and now I'm 42. And yeah, I
You look
feel good. I feel
amazing for
confident.
42, girl. You look
Oh, thank you.
amazing.
Virtual high five. So yeah, I'm just happy, healthy, and just really excited about sharing, my story, my experience with others, and how, like, especially embodiment has helped me a lot to actually feel my body and not just my brain sending the wrong signals to my body, but actually feeling what my body has to say about all this. So it's like
Yeah.
giving your body a voice, but you have to listen. And that's what helped me get to where I am now.
Yeah, so I know for a lot of us that have experienced trauma or have anxiety, staying in our bodies can be a really hard thing to
Hmm.
start to learn to do because we've
Yeah.
spent so long trying to avoid all of those internal sensations that
Oh,
don't
yeah.
feel great.
Yeah.
Um, so for you, like what was the starting point for you that like
Hmm.
brought you into that? Like what was the first skill or something that you learned that you
Hmm.
were like, oh, this is I can sit in my body and I can actually tolerate.
Dance. It may sound weird because it's not like sitting still and actually focusing on what your body has to tell you, but I had to get that connection back again. And
Okay.
as a kid, I've always loved to dance. I was a ballet dancer for 13 years. So I always loved to use my body in that way. And that's how I created that connection again. later in life, I started to belly dance and go to the gym and work out. And because I had this body story that I would tell myself that, okay, I'm physically weak. My body never does what I want it to do. So with intention, I tried to change those body stories that I was telling myself. I was like, okay, my body is strong and it
Mm.
does do what I want it to do. And so I worked out, I got a bit more muscular, and I danced, and I was feeling like the sensual movement of belly dancing is what helped me to connect to it as well. And so it's really like these, and yoga, of course, I always loved yoga. And I did that more often and really felt my body connecting, even to just the yoga mat. And
Yeah.
it's just that attention and that awareness that comes with that changes that story, I think. Your body story, I always call it. Like, that's your connection that you have to your body. Like, what is the story that you are telling yourself about your body? Is it positive? Is it negative? Are you telling yourself you're weak, or are you telling yourself you're strong? Because you can change your own body story.
That is really true. And I love that it actually wasn't like so meditation could be like
Mhm.
movement too, right? So what you're
Yeah.
talking about is really like somatic body movements and
Mhm.
being in your body but with motion.
Yeah.
And I've said before on this show that like for me it's always been hard to sit still,
Right.
and because I think I've just, maybe because our nervous systems are on high alert, like it's
Mhm.
harder for us to just not get that energy out, and the
Yeah, you're
movement.
constantly just distracted by what's going on
Yeah,
elsewhere.
exactly. That's really what it is. You're so right, Susanna. So it really, like that movement,
Mhm.
for me, I know like lifting weights was really great. It was
Yeah.
better for me than cardio because cardio felt like just too much effort.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
but dancing, like I always loved to do Zumba, and that was very
Yeah.
like empowering for me because I was like, oh, I can like it just felt happy. It felt like a
Right.
release
Yeah.
without like trying to force a release. So that's
Exactly, because that's the most important thing, not force it. And just really, again, that's allowing you to listen to your body, because what feels good to you. Because if you force it, if you don't like going to the gym, don't force yourself by going. If you enjoy walking, go walking.
yeah.
Go to the woods, go to the beach, go just walk in the city, walk if that's what makes you feel connected to your body. But really listen to your body and how it expresses itself when you do something that makes you feel good, and go do that.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. That's perfect.
Mhm.
So, with clients now, like how do you help them to get back more grounded in their bodies so
Hmm.
that they can, do you work with just people with conversion disorders as well, or is that like a specialty of yours, or is it like overall just anxiety?
Yeah, it's the latter, but also just anyone who wants to feel that connection again. I think it's very widespread that a lot of people, we are quite mind focused, I think.
Mm.
And especially as women, we tend to have quite negative body stories about ourselves.
Yes.
And really, I just want to help anyone who wants to reconnect with themselves and their body and just take that control back. Because as you mentioned, in our intro, that when you want to heal, you have all the power, all the control. The magic is there. You just have to let it out.
That is true. And
Mm.
I think that personal responsibility, a personal accountability piece of,
Mhm.
despite the fact that we might have and mental illness, I think gets a bad rap because it's hard to see.
Yeah.
Like other disabilities, you can maybe see and have a
Mhm.
little more empathy, but it's an internal battle.
Yeah.
Um,
It doesn't
so
get enough, well, almost credit even, because as you
yeah,
mentioned, when you have, say, like a broken ankle or something, it's obvious. You can see it. You walk with crutches. But when you have a mental disability, you don't have any mental crutches that you can show. And so that has always been a battle of mine when I was in my teens and I couldn't finish my high school, or I couldn't go to a job. And the people around me, even family members who didn't understand, who would say, why aren't you going to school? Or why aren't you working? Why aren't you moving out? And I would tell them, like, I have this anxiety. It's just not working for me right now. I have to deal with this first. But they just didn't really
They didn't get it.
understand, or yeah, they didn't understand what it was that I was like scared of.
But that makes sense.
Mm,
But then like if I think that because you like that's that messaging that we get, right? That's like,
mhm,
oh, it's all in your head or you just need to toughen up. It makes us feel very like misunderstood
mhm,
and hopeless
yeah,
and when we stop listening to the messaging that other people are giving us and we realize that like okay, yeah, I have my own internal battles. What are some solutions that I could do absent of anyone else?
mhm,
I don't need anyone else to help me do this. That the
yeah,
power is within me to
mm,
make myself feel better
yeah,
for myself.
yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
that's
you can't blame other people for not understanding your battle,
yeah,
because we don't understand everyone else's battle,
yeah,
because that's also where you can take your own power back and say, like, it's okay. They may not understand. That's just their capacity. They can't hold space for me in that sense, and
yeah,
that's fine. They don't have to. But also, I don't have to explain myself every time I see them or every time they talk to me.
yeah.
Like, you can just say, like, okay, you may not understand my point of view, and that's fine, but just leave leave me be.
Well, and I think it's learning to love and take care of yourself, right? Which I
Mhm.
think for anyone struggling with mental health issues is
Yeah.
always really a struggle because what
Oh, yeah.
like the energy is not there. It's
Mm.
hard to feel the motivation. It's hard to feel the confidence to do that because
Yeah.
especially when you're constantly in a mental war with yourself, it can be
Mhm.
really, really hard to
Yeah.
see yourself as someone who is capable.
Yeah, but
So I
also
love
that's
that.
where I think compassion has to come in. Like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I'm not able to set firm boundaries, but even if I can just set one small boundary for myself, that's already okay. That's already enough, because I'm doing more than setting no boundaries at all. It's really about being compassionate with yourself and saying, okay, I don't have the energy for this right now. And that's okay too. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe next year. That's okay.
Yeah. No, self-compassion,
Mm.
you're right. 100% key. Key,
Yeah.
especially for us anxious folks because I feel like most of us blame ourselves. Like
Mhm.
we blame ourselves for what we say to ourselves or the things that
Mm.
other people say to us or how we're
Yeah.
feeling. We feel guilty. Like
Yeah.
even me right now like I um have been a little under the weather and not quite myself with being pregnant
Mm.
and I find myself like my internal dialogue which I can still combat because I have skills, right? But
Right.
the internal dialogue's still there like, well, you should be doing more and
Oh,
like you
yeah.
shouldn't be resting and like all of the shoulds and whatever
Yeah.
and but I think when you practice that self-compassion, I'm much better
Mm.
now at being like no, I'm going to give myself a break and I'm going to take a nap
Yeah.
midday because I
Exactly.
deserve a nap and that's
Yeah.
okay. And
Yeah.
it's okay for me not to be everyone's, you know, um, person right now and to
Exactly.
just take
Yeah.
some time for
Because you're never
myself.
going to be everyone's person, and
No,
that's totally fine.
no,
I
you
don't even
can't.
want to be everyone's person. I'm like, okay, like me, awesome. Don't like me, awesome.
Other, not, so I'm more like, my family, I'm very like mama bear protective with
Mhm.
my kiddos and my husband and my siblings. And, so in that sense, family wise, I tend to be like the rallier that's like, yeah, we can do this, guys. Everyone's got it.
Yes.
No, I got your back.
You're like each person.
Outside world, I'm like, say whatever you want about me. I don't care. I don't know you. You don't actually know who I am, so it's fine.
Yeah,
You can hate
I
me.
don't
That's
care.
great. But when it comes to people I love, I think it's really hard for me to put myself first sometimes.
Mm,
And with the years of being like a little more self-compassionate, it's kind of been amazing this year that it's
mm,
still a struggle. And I want to be honest with that because I think it's important for people to realize that there's even when you've done the work and you
mhm.
do the work with other people, that it doesn't mean that you don't ever struggle again. Cause I
Oh
think
gosh,
that
no.
people get this mindset of like, oh, if I do this, I'll be fixed. If I do this, I'll be healed. If I do this,
No.
and then I
Like,
won't
oh, I
ever
wish
feel
that would
this
be
again.
great.
That would be great, right? But it doesn't work like that.
No, unfortunately, we're all just human still. And you live, you learn. And even though I'm done healing, I haven't stopped learning still. And I'm still discovering about me and how I feel and why I react the way that I do, and what some of my sensitivities are. And because sometimes I surprise myself, like, whoa, why did I react like that? That wasn't really necessary. And then I just look back and like, okay, yeah, I'm just really very tired right now. And that person was really pushing my buttons. And then again, that compassion has to come in and like, it's okay. You're good.
But even then, right, like because you're compassionate to yourself in that
Yeah,
moment, you don't go down a rabbit hole or a spiral.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't go into a fight or an argument and you're just like, whew, okay, not right now, stepping away.
Recalibrate, recalibrate.
Oh yeah. And that's
Excuse me.
a good thing to learn, and it's a hard thing to learn. I know, because being self-compassionate isn't always the easiest thing to do, but I know, because we tend to be very hard on ourselves, especially as very sensitive people. We want to have it all together, and when we don't, we blame it on ourselves. And I really had to struggle with that as well, because I always had the tendency to have my worth tied to being very busy. I'm doing a lot. So that makes me worthy. So productivity and worth were quite tight when it came to that. And now I'm like, okay, no, I'm worthy just for being, not just for doing. But that is also, it's you have to shed all these layers that came to that mindset. And yeah, you have to dig deep sometimes to know, okay, where did that come from?
Yeah, I that's a really common experience.
Mm.
I think too of that. I'm good when I achieve these things,
Right.
or I make these people happy, like that
Yeah.
productivity and worth thing. How did you learn to, like, 'cause, and I'm sure you're still learning, because I'm still in
Mhm.
that process too, right? Like
Mhm.
there are days that I'm like, I have to really analyze, why am I doing this
Right.
right now? Is it because it's serving me, or is it because I feel like I have to?
Mhm.
Um, but how did that come about for you? Like
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
productivity, worth, and working through that?
I think it's from what I have learned along the years, it really came from that place of when I was dealing with my phobia and when I was a teenager and in school, and where I had to drop out of school because I couldn't go anymore. My health was stopping me from doing that. And after that, I always felt the need to prove to other people that I can do it. I am worthy of existing in this social life that everyone is living, and everyone is working. I finally got to working, and I had just a regular office job, and always felt that need to like almost overcompensate and show people like, see, I can actually do it. So I know it definitely stemmed from that period in my life where I couldn't do it, and where I had to constantly remind people like I'm still worthy even though I can't do it right now. And then, yeah, as I said, I wanted to overcompensate and show people like, see, I can actually do it. And that I took that with me for so many years. And only just recently, after working on that PTSD and my conversion disorder, that I had to dig a bit deeper and see what that shadow work and the negative and limiting beliefs were all about. And I thought, yeah, I'm still actually doing that. I'm still tying my worth to being productive, and it doesn't help me. So yeah, and again, that's where the self compassion had to come in. I still have my days where I think, but it's also it's all about balance, because I actually like and enjoy being active and enjoy checking things off my to-do list. So
Yeah.
it gives me a sense of pride, but I don't tie it to my worthiness anymore, because I allow myself to have days where I just do nothing, where I intentionally say to myself, I'm going to relax, because that's one of my habits for the day. When I start, when I wake up, I set an intention for myself, and it could be a word, it could be how I want to feel at the end of the day. But I just go in with, okay, today I'm going to relax. I'm going to do nothing that I shouldn't be doing, that I don't want to be doing. So, and luckily I have the freedom to do so. For some, it could be like the whole day. For me, for some, it could be just, okay, I'm going to have a whole hour where I just focus on me or doing nothing or doing, I don't know, reading that book that I finally wanted to start, or it could look whatever, what feels good to you. That's always my main intention. What feels good to you? Because
Yeah.
that's what, fills up that battery, fills up your cup, and then you can keep going. And
Yeah.
happier and
No.
healthier as well.
Yeah. And you're, what always worked for me with that too is like, I find that when I don't give myself that rest,
Mhm.
that break, and again, rest doesn't have to mean sitting still. For me,
Mhm.
rest usually means like walking in the woods or doing something in nature, like going kayaking. Like that
Yeah.
to me is like one of the most relaxing things I can do is just be in nature
Yeah.
and like just listen and be. But still be moving
Oh, yeah, yeah.
because I constantly need to be moving. Um, but where was I going with that? So I like the idea of, I'm sorry, Susanna, please help me, love. I'm brain fart.
Yeah, no, it's like it looks different for everyone, that self-care and that moment for yourself where you can have a bit of, where you don't have to tie that worthiness to being productive. It can look
Yes.
different for everyone. So as you mentioned, you can just do it by being active, or you can do it by reading a book, or just spending some time in the garden, or I don't know, crocheting a
Oh,
sweater.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So self-worth and productivity. Yes. Self-worth. That's what we were talking about. My brain just like literally was like, where were you going with
Yeah.
that? I don't know.
Oh, don't worry. It happens to me too as well.
But the productivity piece for me, it's like, um, what helped me too in that journey is one, like you said, that self-compassion,
Mhm.
but two, like, am I doing this thing because it's truly going to make me happy and it's a goal that I want to achieve
Mhm.
because it's important to my life, my values, my, myself,
Right.
because I feel like as a people pleaser, so much of my life, those productivity goals were about the external validation that I received
Mhm.
from someone else.
Right. Yeah.
So that also became really important for me in learning that, like, that worth and productivity. Like, I value myself because I am a very capable human and I do a lot of really cool things.
Mhm.
But now I try to do more things that just you're like, I don't care if other people think they're cool. I think they're cool and they make me happy.
Mhm.
So I'm going to try to do more of that stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that switch also helped me not to feel like the task list, at least it's my task list,
Mhm.
because I've always had a task list like
Right.
that, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like for most of my life, the things on that task list were more about how do I make this person see my value
Right.
in my actions
Mm.
versus what do I need to do to make myself feel good about myself
Yeah,
with my own actions,
exactly.
right?
Because we are so like outside focused when it comes to that. And like you can ask yourself, okay, is this what I am expecting of me, or is this what someone else is expecting of me? And there you go. That already takes you a long way.
Yeah, I feel like it really, really does. And then it helps you to, not, because I don't know about you,
Mhm.
but most of the people I talk to, right, that have that productivity and worth thing,
Mhm.
it becomes like a ladder, right? So it's
Yeah.
like you achieve this. And it's not like you're like, oh, I feel great now
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like accomplished.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, oh no, now I have to do that next thing
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and the next
Oh,
thing
yeah.
and the next thing.
Yeah.
And
You're
it's like
never
you just
fulfilled, or yeah.
yeah, it's just like this it's like we're chasing that high
Yeah.
of like, when I accomplish all of these things, then I'll finally feel like I'm worthy enough of myself. And I
Yeah.
think that's why that message of coming back in your body,
Mhm.
Susanna, and learning to just accept yourself for who you
Yeah.
are, limitations and all,
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with people who are supportive of that,
Oh, yeah.
and maybe setting some healthy boundaries with the
Ooh,
people who
hell yeah.
don't have the best messaging around
Ooh.
that for us.
Oh, don't worry
Um,
about that. Hallelujah.
well, so boundaries, I feel like, is another big thing in recovery too, though, especially
Also, yeah.
for us anxious people.
Yeah.
Um, how do you work with clients to
Mhm.
develop better boundaries or even understand what their boundaries need to be? Because I find that
Mhm.
so many of us don't even know like we know the concepts, we're not dumb, we know what the definition of boundaries is, but like how to actually set and hold a boundary, I think that everyone doesn't, that the general public doesn't necessarily have that skill set.
Yeah. And it's one of the most important things to learn when you want to heal, and to heal fully, and to live a healthy life. And did I have to learn that, because I was a people pleaser as well, and I wanted just others to be happy and to like me. Now I don't care. I've really had to set my own boundaries because I was draining my energy for other people's happiness.
Yeah.
And even though I would love for others, and especially those close to me, for them to be happy, but not at my expense anymore. And that's what I had to learn, because it was an inner dialogue that I had to have with myself. I'm like, okay, I'm constantly tired. Why am I so tired? Why is my agenda and to-do list full with doing stuff for others and just holding space for others? Where am I in this, in my life story? You know? And people were, they knew that, and they knew I had a lack of boundaries, so they took advantage of that. And now, even when I feel someone is being close to coming near a boundary, I'm already like, yeah, not happening. It's really a process that you have to learn and figure out. It's, again, different for everyone. And I had it with like the people closest to me, but even to like my friends, even neighbors. And they would just hop on over and come unannounced. And I'm like, I would always invite them in and say, yeah, okay, of course I have time for you. I didn't, but I said I did. And what I also, that was something that I really struggled with, because I'm an empath and very high sensitive, and I could feel people's energy, and I would always be very attached to their energy, and I wanted to heal them and make them feel better. And that was actually me robbing them of their own healing journey. And I didn't know that at the time, because, I can't fix everyone, especially when they're not open or ready to receive that healing. I have to honor them in their own healing journey. And I was always the one who wanted to heal them without them even asking for it. So,
I love that sentiment. Can you speak more about that journey of just learning that like it's not on me to help other people heal, or even like try to facilitate that for them, like unless they're asking for it, right? So we work with clients. If a client comes to me, like it is my job to help you on your healing journey. But if my sister comes to me, or my brother comes to me, or my girlfriend comes to me, that's no longer my job anymore, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That is like, it's my job to be a support person.
Yeah.
But I'm not everyone in my life's therapist. I'm my client's therapist. That's
exactly. And and you have to find out, like, okay, maybe they're not even, some people, I think, no, even most people are just wanting to, to share their story, share their problems, share their issues, share whatever is on their mind. And I always wanted to be the fixer, the one with solutions. And most of the time they weren't even looking for solutions. They just wanted to be heard. And I know that now, and I've learned that lesson by always being drained by other people's emotions and their stories. And I would get so attached and involved. And I wasn't helping them by doing that. And I definitely wasn't helping me by doing that, because I was drained the entire time.
Yeah.
So I learned to really set almost like these energetic boundaries, and I created an emotional distance from what they were telling me. So when they would share their story with me, I would listen, hold space for them to share it. And of course, you can be compassionate, because that's what a true friend is. You can be compassionate, but without being soaked in or like drenched with those emotions, and that you actually feel those emotions for them. And you just have a distance between it. You can be their compassionate friend, but, give them a hug when they need it, make space for their story, and that's it. And say, I'm here if you need me. And that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you're really talking about is not taking on that rescuer role,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like not being like, oh, it's my job, it's my responsibility, which I think a lot of us who feel not good enough chronically, we have that tendency to also have that belief of like, I am responsible for everyone around me, right? So it becomes very easy for us to just automatically, and probably because this is how we achieved love or validation in our childhood, like be the fixer, be the person that made everyone else happy and,
be everyone's friends.
cater to mom and dad. But when we do that with people in our adult life, like one, like you said, you're robbing them of their ability to take control of their own healing journey. And it can also feel like, and I know for some people they're like, oh, but I'm just trying to help, right? But it can also feel to that person who's just coming to vent to you and say like, or commiserate and be like, I just had a really rough day. Like, my girlfriends will call me sometimes and be like, I just need to complain about the kids because they drove me nuts and I have a really hard mom day today. Because it can be hard, but when we go in and try to identify solutions for people and we're not even asking them if that's what they're looking for, it can make them feel like maybe they just wanted to vent and they didn't feel like they had a problem, but now they're like, do I have a bigger problem?
Do I need
Is something really wrong? Like, and then they feel like, even though you're actually trying to be super empathic and you're trying to solve this for them because you love them so much and you care, it comes across like you're judgmental or you're telling them how to live their lives. And I have people pleasers in my family, and I work with a lot of people pleasers who will say like, they're mad at me. They feel like I'm meddling or I'm in the middle or, I'm placing myself in situations that I don't need to be. And they have a hard time understanding that because from that perspective, when you're so engrossed in that, it just seems like, but I'm trying to help. But it's important to know, like, one, it's not healthy for you. And two, you actually could be causing that person to feel more shame, more guilt, more negative emotions about that situation than if you were just like, yeah, you're right. Like, it sounds like Shar was a nightmare last night, and I'm really sorry you went through that, girlfriend. Like, we all have our nights. We all have bad mom nights where we lose it and we just try say sorry and do better the next day, girl. Which is so much better than being like, oh, but did you try this? And did you try this when she went to the bath? And did you try this and this and this and this and this? Because then the person's just like, oh, I must be a miserable failure and I should have thought of all these things. Like, if you just validate, like, sometimes life sucks, man.
Grab a cup of tea. No, it's
I think
we don't want to be that therapist that no one's asking for.
Well, and even as a therapist, right? Like, I don't ever provide my clients with solutions, which is why I think it's interesting that I had the tendency to do this in my personal life. And maybe it's because as like in school, we don't give advice as that. You're not supposed to. Because it's not my life. And if you walk into any situation like that, it prevents you from understanding that deeper story, right? For me, it's all about, with my clients, like how they got to these beliefs. Okay, so they feel not good enough. They feel chronically responsible for everyone else. They chronically seek external validation. And they feel very stuck and hopeless, right? Why? Right? And if I'm just providing them solutions to not feel that way, and we don't understand the why and the deeper meaning of where all that comes from, that's a Band-Aid. That's a Band-Aid. That ain't helping nothing change. And then it becomes like, and this is why I feel like people wind up in therapy for years and years and years, because they're just going to therapy because the therapist has become their source of validation and co-signing on all of their, like, victimhood and all of that. And I don't think that's particularly helpful to people, because that ownership, what you started out with in your bio, like, you are in control of your life. You have the power and the magic within you, right? That is what it should be about when we're working with our clients, of helping them feel empowered that no matter what happens to me in my life, I can overcome shit because I've overcome shit, and I'll just pick myself up and move on. It might not be the best point in my life. It might be a valley, but we'll get to a peak again.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's so important to know that you're in control. And even though you don't feel like it, because when I was going through my PTSD and I was having nightmares and I was even sleepwalking, and I mean, life was really like shit, honestly. And I didn't feel in control at all. But slowly and but surely, I got to the end, and I took back my control, and I listened to my body. I feel awesome, and you can do that too. I mean, everyone that's listening, you can do that too. And I can provide, all these self healing techniques, and that's why they're called self healing, not healing, but self healing, because you can do it, and then you can, find out what works for you and how you can heal yourself.
I think that's really, really empowering
Mhm.
message, Susanna, because I think that it's not a message that at least I feel like I got a lot
Mhm.
growing up, or that I hear a lot. Even in our, we're American over here,
Mhm.
but I don't know about the Netherlands, but especially because we're so commercial
Mhm.
in our culture, it's so much like all of the buy this, buy that, buy all of these outside things,
Yeah.
and that'll help you feel whole.
Mm.
And I think that really also contributes to that messaging of people constantly searching outside of themselves
Yeah.
for happiness,
Yeah.
when really the only way to make ourselves happy is to look inside ourselves
Oh.
of what is even going to make me happy, right?
Mhm.
Like, what do I even like?
Exactly.
How many clients have you had that don't know what they even enjoy in life?
Oh gosh, I think most people don't, yeah, don't really know. I always say it's about self exploration. What do you like? What do you want? What do you enjoy? Not what is being told from the outside that you should enjoy or that you should do or what you should look like and I don't know, should love. What do you
Yeah.
want deep down here? Who is this? And I have a technique that I call Dharma diary, where I write in, okay, my Dharma is my purpose. And I write literally like I am. I write just those two words, I am. And then what follows this is just what comes up from my heart, from my mind, from my soul. And I write that down. I am energetic. I am inspiring. I am a dancer. I am, and so on and so forth, and just write what
Yeah.
comes up and get to know yourself. I think that's very powerful because a lot of people tend, well, I am me. Of course, I know about what I like and what I want, but deep down, do you really? And dig deeper and again find what sparks you joy, what brings you happiness, what lights your fire, and go there, do more of that. And that brings so much happiness.
Yeah. It really
Mhm.
does. And I think for people who haven't yet experienced that, if you've been living your life trying to make everyone else
Mhm.
happy, when you make that switch and really, and it's a hard switch.
Oh, yeah.
I know for me and a lot of my clients, like it could feel really daunting and
Mhm.
even like unnerving to recognize,
Yeah.
like, I don't even know who I am as a person. I
Yeah.
don't even know what I like.
It's
I don't
scary.
even know if this
Oh, yeah.
career was something I wanted to
Yeah.
do, or if it's just something my family or my
Mm.
husband or my parents pushed me into, right?
Yeah.
Like, it can be really, really like earth shattering to realize, like, oh, I've been living my life for 30 years for other people
Yeah.
and I have no idea what I want or what I like or who I am as a
Oh yeah,
human.
it's scary as hell. And it can be very lonely because
Yeah.
you have to focus on you and you have to do it. Of course, there are friends and parents hopefully that can assist you or at least stand by your side when you are going through that and getting to know your deepest self. But you have to do it by yourself and find out what it is that you truly love and want. But when you get to that place of actually knowing yourself and knowing what makes you happy, oh, girl.
It just makes it's life changing.
Oh,
It
it's
really is life changing because
yeah.
once you know what makes you happy, it becomes easier to set those
Oh,
boundaries
yeah,
because
absolutely.
you know what things are not going to make you happy, where you need to, if you don't even know what you like, you can't even set a
Oh,
boundary.
yeah,
So,
true. Yeah.
it's the first step.
Yeah.
And although it seems scary, it's really like as easy as like, what kind of movies do I like? I
Mhm.
don't know. Let's do a science experiment. I love science
Mhm.
experiments. But like, it's called call it exposure therapy, but I'm going to try this thing, and I'm going to rate it for myself, and I'm just going to figure it out. And if I don't like it, then I don't like it. I won't do that again. And if I do
Yeah.
like it, great. I'm going to try it again.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, I feel like a lot of my clients put a lot of pressure on themselves to be like, well, now I have to figure out who I am. And I'm like, yeah, that's a process. It's not like you just like,
Yeah.
like the next day you're like, yeah, I'm this, really loving, fun person who loves going on walks and energy and all, you don't define who you are in a day.
Yeah.
And I also feel like who we are changes throughout our lives,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like,
I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago. And
no.
I'm proud of who I was 20 years ago. I'm happy I'm not her anymore and that I've changed and grown and expanded, to the person that I am now. Otherwise, I would be sharing this story with you right now. So,
Yeah.
we can also be proud of, who we were and also embrace who we are right now and also who we're going to be.
Yes. And I tell that to myself all the time now when I'm like, because we're all just people in recovery that are works in progress, right? And I'm not going to have nothing in my life is perfect ever. So, I have to learn to just accept that, like, when I do get down, because I think even in that journey, sometimes we get down at like, I didn't meet that goal when I wanted to, even if it was a goal for ourselves.
Right.
I think especially if it was a goal for myself, I get even more annoyed at myself that I didn't meet it. But it's like learning to be like, all right, but let's look back. What can I do differently? And I know I can get there in the future. Right. And that changing of who we are over time, like you said, is really, really important. And we should embrace that because if we don't change, then we didn't grow.
Yeah.
We didn't learn. And I think that also important for our listeners to know when you go through this healing journey and you start to make changes in your life and you figure out who you are, you're not always going to be welcomed by those around you with all these changes. So it is okay that some people might be like, oh, well, you changed. And I think, especially as people pleasers, right? When people say to us like, oh, you changed.
You're different now.
And
like,
you're different now, right? You got that too.
Oh, yeah.
And I swear every single one of my clients gets that when they start really doing the work and making changes because you're disrupting their status quo.
Right.
And if you were the person for years who took care of everyone and neglected you, people are going to push back on you because of that, because it affects them, right? And that doesn't mean that you're wrong.
Yeah.
It just means that I just want people to know that is a very common response and that you need to just stand your grounds and be okay with the fact that like, this is me learning how to live my life for me and not for others.
Yeah, not everyone is going to accept the new you. But when people tell me, oh, you've changed, I just say, thank you. Awesome. Yeah, that's what I want. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to expand. I want to, change is one thing that's a constant, right? So we should accept that and embrace that. So when people say you've changed, I say, thank you.
Well, if we don't change, I mean, our ability to adapt to the world around us requires us to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we stay stagnant, like that's not good survival skills, guys.
It's
like
not helpful.
This is not helpful.
Yeah.
And our lives change so much. Like if you go from being a student to, maybe a college student, and then like you have your own house and then you make your own families and like there's so many different chapters that we experience that require us to wear so many different hats, to learn so many different new skills. Like I wouldn't know half the stuff I without motherhood, I wouldn't be half the person that I am today, because that whole experience had so many, like it was a catalyst for so many other changes in my own self-awakening, in my interests, in what became important to me as a person, that if I didn't change, it'd be kind of weird. And I feel like the people who don't change when they become parents, especially, I'm like, something's wrong here because you're still very self-interested and you have these humans you need to take care of. Right?
These little humans there want food and attention and love. Don't do that.
But change is so necessary to our growth.
Absolutely. Like I said, we should embrace that change. And as I said, I always love to learn. I'm such a curious person, and I just absorb all these new experiences. I think also because, in my late teens, early 20s, I was mostly at home and I didn't get to experience life. And that's why also, when I finally could travel, I went to like 4 destinations in one single year. I was like, yes, finally I can do this, live life to the fullest, and I can. So, yeah, that's why, and of course, like a near death experience also kind of contributes to the fact that, you want to absorb life and
Yeah.
learn, heal, grow, expand in every way you can. So that's why I love to. I'm constantly doing courses. I'm like reading 3 books at the same time, just one here, one there, and learning new languages, and yeah, just taking life.
Making the most out of your life.
Hell yeah.
But that's the way it should be, Susanna. It should
Yeah.
be that we're making the most out of our lives and living a life that makes us truly feel happy.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I've never met a truly happy person
Mhm.
that I didn't want to be around too. And I
Mhm.
think that's something for those people pleasers in recovery to remember. If you're really happy in yourself
Mhm.
and you feel comfortable in your own skin and you're in a regulated body most of the time
Mhm.
because you take care of yourself, other people are going to be drawn to you just
Yeah.
because your energy is so like fire.
Yeah.
Like, who
Yeah.
doesn't want to be around that person
Yeah.
who's confident and, can set their boundaries and can communicate well and is happy with themselves overall.
Yeah.
Like it's a very different experience sitting and having a conversation with someone like you as it is having a conversation with someone who is in a very negative mental
Mhm.
headspace and everything is a negative and everything is a Debbie Downer.
Oh yeah.
And, like you attract the energy that you put out,
Yeah.
right? So
And
when
then
you're putting,
boundaries. Woo, yeah, when you have such a negative Nancy or someone who's just very pessimistic about life. I mean, I know some of them, and I've put up. Yeah, I know them, and we put up boundaries because we have to protect ourselves because of that. And it's okay to be pessimistic, or especially when you're having a bad time, a bad period in life, or you've suffered from trauma. Of course,
yeah,
you're crushed or you're sad, grieving. Of course, and it's very healthy to be pessimistic and allow those feelings to come as well, because we shouldn't just be
happy all the
oh
time.
yeah.
You're 100% correct. And I
Yeah.
think we need to provide compassion to people
Mm.
when they are stuck. And I've definitely been there in my life too. I've
Mm.
had bouts of depression where I have been like, I could, and even now, like there are times that I get something triggers you, brings you
Yeah.
back to that stuff that you have PTSD
Yeah.
over, and you can get caught in that negative headspace
Oh yeah.
again and loop for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But they don't have to last long. For me, sometimes when I get triggered
Exactly.
by that, before it could last a week or something, and now it could last. I give myself a day. Like, okay, I'm allowed to feel shit for a day, and then I get
Yeah.
back to being my regulated and happy self again. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, but that's really all recovery is, right? It's
Mhm.
like it's not that it doesn't happen. It's
Yeah.
just a lot shorter.
Yeah.
It's like instead of derailing me and me like having all these other destructive behaviors
Mhm.
because this one thing triggered this and then that triggered me to do all these other things that
Mhm.
just created chaos in
Yeah.
my life. It's more like, okay, I'm going to just let myself feel sad or angry or whatever
Yeah.
about that
Yeah.
and give myself the time to feel what I'm feeling and then
Mhm.
I can let it go and move on.
Yeah, because the
But if we
emotions are
don't,
gonna come anyway. You can suppress them for a bit. It's like pushing down a balloon in the water. Well, the more you push, you can push it down for a while, but then pew,
yeah.
there it goes.
Well, and I think that's a lot of I know for me in my early 20s and in my teens, that's how I dealt with uncomfortable emotions.
Mhm.
I would just ignore them
Right.
and be like, I'm going to try to push it down, push it down, push it down. But
Yeah.
then eventually you blow up and you look like a psychopath.
Yeah.
So that's not
Yeah,
great.
that's not helpful.
Um, it's not advisable. But when we pay attention to it and we allow ourselves, like it's giving yourself that self-compassion to
Yeah.
be like, yeah, I have a right to be angry right now.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
don't have to respond to that anger. I don't have to act on that feeling,
Mhm.
but I'm allowed to sit in it and feel it and
Mhm.
like give myself some self-compassion. And I really recommend if you do feel angry or upset or like these really intense
Mhm.
emotions that are bringing you back to some of the trauma in our past,
Mhm.
that we don't address them
Yeah.
until we are back in our
Oh, yeah.
regulated bodies,
Mhm.
because that is how you continue the
Yeah.
chaos that you used to live
And also, they are just emotions. They don't have to be. We label them as negative,
True.
but they don't have to be. We just allow them to be there without judgment, and they go away a lot faster. And usually under those extreme ones, like the extreme panic or the extreme anger, usually there is just an insecurity there, or you're not feeling safe, or you're not feeling
Safe.
seen or heard, or there's a
Yeah.
strong disconnect there. And again, there's where the self-compassion comes in. It's an emotion. Feel it, allow it to be there, because otherwise it gets stuck. Maybe like in your chest, in your fist, whatever. It gets stuck in your body, but it doesn't have to be. Feel it without judgment. Have some self-compassion there. And you can even, when that peak of emotion has gone, just feel what's below that. Like, okay, what was I actually feeling?
Well, that's really what it is that under those intense emotions, especially if we're feeling triggered, is usually something in our bodies saying to us, like, hey, this doesn't feel safe for me,
Right.
or we need a boundary here. And when we push it down, we don't feel it long enough to see what it's actually trying to say.
We just
And when
get
you
the
allow
peak, but not the
yeah. And when you allow yourself to just sit with that and be like, all right, I'm gonna try to listen to like what my body is saying, why I feel this, like try to talk to myself a little bit to figure out how I got here. Cause I think a lot of the times, especially when we're triggered, we know like this is a disproportionate level of anger to this situation, right? Like we're aware of it, but it doesn't change the fact that it's like physically and emotionally still very triggering. But when you sit with it, you can work through it. Susan, we are almost time to wrap up, but I wanted to ask you one more question that I ask all of my guests. What does being good enough or feeling good enough mean to you?
Again, that's self-love and self-compassion. That's what it all comes down to. Like, not tying your worth to any outside thing, like the busyness and the productivity or other people telling you are good enough. You have to feel it within yourself. It's that worthiness, that compassion you have for yourself, that love you have from yourself. Only you can give yourself that compassion, that love, and that worthiness of like, I am good enough, because, just by being, you are good enough.
Love that. Susanne, if people want to work with you, where can they reach you? Where can they follow you? Where can they find you, dear?
Well, they can reach me at SusanneKooijman.com. So that's my name that you can see here. I know it's a difficult one. That's SusanneKooijman.com.
Okay. SusanneKooijman.com. That will definitely be in our show notes.
Thank you.
For anyone who wants to work with Susanne and learn how to be compassionate and regulate yourself and those self skills to help you regulate on the daily basis so that you feel more in control of your body and your life.
Absolutely. I'm here to help you uncover your own inner magic.
I love that. Uncover your inner magic with Susanne, guys. She is phenomenal. All right. I want to remind our listeners that you guys are good enough. Till next time.
Thank you for listening to Good Enough with the Trauma Therapist. We appreciate you listening. While our host may provide some personal and professional advice, we want to remind you that this show is for entertainment purposes only. Each individual situation is unique, and Good Enough is not a substitute for mental health treatment. If you need a therapist and are located in New York or Missouri, feel free to reach out to us at liendr.com or resilient-mo.com.